Firstly, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk at fastBREAK. It's a great thrill for me to be out here and to be talking to you. As Michael mentioned, my name is Sam Strong. I'm the Artistic Director of Griffin. There's our slides. That feels extremely loud. Is that just me up here? No? Sorry, I'll just there. Sorry, I've just been in tech rehearsals for yesterday. I'm in the tech zone. Look, I thought it was probably appropriate to talk, or to get the opportunity to talk about change, and to talk about change and theatre, and use Griffin as a kind of specific case study. And I think it's useful to talk about, can I fuck this off and just talk without it? Yeah, can we lose it?
For the video.
Yeah, is that right? Great. I thought it was actually good to talk about kind of theatre as a case study of change. Only in the sense that kind of theatre has a terribly bad rap, and a kind of justifiably bad rap, in the sense that theatre doesn't do change particularly well historically. Anyway, I kind of like think of some big companies in some senses as like the artistic or the creative equivalent of a cruise ship. You know, they're full of an awful lot of old people and they don't really turn around in a hurry. So what I wanted to do was to kind of dispel some myths about theatre and to dispel some myths about change, and actually to talk about how theatre actually can change. Contrary to popular belief that we are the kind of daggiest art form out there. So to talk a little bit about my own practice as a director, and to talk about some kind of Griffin specific examples, and to talk to innovation in theatre and at Griffin. So if theatre can innovate, if theatre can change, how can it do it? I think it can do it in three ways, which I want to touch on first. And the first one is by speaking to a contemporary attention span. I think to a certain extent the kind of naturalistic form that theatre has been stuck in since the end of the 19th century, for me hasn't actually caught up with the way that we take in information in the modern world. And so formally, in a way, kind of text-based theatre is not moving as quickly as other mediums. So I think a really, really interesting, useful and effective way in which theatre can innovate is by actually addressing itself and formally addressing itself to a contemporary attention span. To give you an example of that, a brief example of that from my own practice, I dramaturged a play recently. It's actually I'm starting a rehearsal of a national tour of it on Monday, called Red Sky Morning, which is a Tom Holloway play that effectively was three overlapping, very, very tightly overlapped monologues. And the kind of intention there was that people can listen to more than one person talking at once. This idea that we have to sit and watch, person A talk and then person B talk, actually doesn't keep up with the way that we take in information in the modern world. It doesn't keep up with the speed with which we can process. And that holds true in a kind of plot sense as well. We're really used to, from kind of great television that's coming out now, we're really used to kind of complex, non-linear plots. And in a sense, theatre has to speak to that contemporary attention span. And that's a really key way in which it can innovate. The second way is kind of by embracing the digital space. Again, theatre has been relatively slow at doing this. If you look at, say, trailers that companies have done over the last 6 months. There's no other theatre company representatives here, are there? No, good. I can bag away. But more seriously, you look at the trailers over the last 6 months, and they've got exponentially better. But it's a really strong instance of how theatre, to a certain extent, and not necessarily at Griffin, has been quite a late adopter, if you use it to use that terminology. We won't actually we'll get on the bandwagon very, very late. And so even the embracing of social media, theatre has kind of lagged behind other places, like this one, that does it a lot better. So one thing that we're doing at Griffin is making sure that we're kind of devoting serious time and resources to that. And in a sense, that's about embracing the digital space and kind of taking it seriously, but also that conceptual shift away from what we do is not just put on shows in a theatre. We need to actually treat our digital content as a really important part of the whole Griffin experience. And to give one example of what we're doing there is, so our Facebook page, for example, is a kind of whole of company responsibility. We're fortunate enough to have a kind of small enough company and a kind of very dedicated and talented staff who are able to kind of share responsibility for that. And given that the kind of company voice is strong enough, we can kind of, then that load can be shared. A third way in which theatre can innovate, which I want to touch on briefly, which is related to that, but it's the idea of turning a show into an event. Not just treating a show as an end unto itself, but actually expanding the nature and the kind of duration, I suppose, of the experience that you have there. So thinking about what you do before a show, thinking about what you do during a show in the foyer, and thinking about what you do after the show, which is where I can briefly introduce a new initiative of ours, which is called Between the Lines. That's our matrix, designed by Interbrand, who we love. This is the matrix for between the lines. And the idea of between the lines is actually it's creating precisely this space. Literally, I mean, obviously we're kind of punning on the kind of text-based thing, but between the line is a space for events in and around our shows. Probably the best way to tell you what that is to proceed by way of example, and that's on our next show, Quack, in which the kind of director and writer got quite excited about zombie films and Deadwood as a kind of visual reference. For example, we're screening a Deadwood marathon on Sundays when the theatre's dark. We're screening some kind of classic zombie films on Saturday night. So it's treating a show as more than just a show. It's expanding the boundaries of a show into an event, and also getting interdisciplinary about that, moving across different art forms, inviting different art forms into our space, and also getting interactive about that, encouraging artists to come and engage with us, rather than be the kind of passive recipients of what we're doing. So what does all of that boil down to in my final, I presume, 30 seconds? No, I've only got 4 minutes yet. Great. You know, in a sense, it's about a kind of conceptual shift, and this might be where a kind of Griffin case study or a theatrical and specific case study is useful in talking about innovation in the arts more generally. And that conceptual shift for me is about transcending rather than kind of defending what's unique about your medium. You know, a lot of theatre tends to focus on what theatre does better than anyone else, which is really appropriate and lovely. You know, it's visceral, it's real time, it only exists in the one time and space, you know, it's ephemeral, and all of that is extremely wonderful. But if you kind of so too rigorously defend that, then, you know, theatre risks becoming the kind of performing arts equivalent of the string quartet. You know, like a few people kind of turn up to the odd concert once in a while, but ultimately your audience is shrinking. So that kind of concept, and that relates to that second point there about transcending rather than defending the traditional audiences. And that's where, in a sense, Griffin is kind of uniquely placed, because we don't have what you might call the kind of subscriber baggage of a larger company that has a massive kind of subscriber base that have to keep happy. But I think being aggressive and proactive about that, and sort of saying, well, we don't need to just defend our existing audience, which, let's face it, is shrinking anyway. We need to be really creative and aggressive about seeking out new audiences. So that sense of, as I mentioned, that kind of that attitudinal shift into going, we're not just going to defend, you know, our small piece of turf. We're actually going to go, great, our small piece of turf is wonderful, but let's move beyond it, and let's get excited about moving beyond it. So that's kind of what we're doing at Griffin at the moment. Between the Lines is the greatest example of that. Another great example is just check out the website, and please come in and see the building. We're really serious about making the foyer. We've got a newly renovated foyer, which is about to get certified compliance in about 2 hours, I think, hopefully. You know, and what we want that foyer to be is a hub for artists and a hub for audience, and a place where we welcome people like you into it. So please check out the website. Please come and check us out, and thank you again for the opportunity to talk. Thank you.